Congressman, take us forward and then we'll go back. Do you believe that the House will try to impeach Mayorkas again?
I do. What happened, Chris, our whip's job is to do just that. And I think they had one that had more or less flipped on them. And then, of course, Steve Scalise was out with cancer treatment. And then the Democrats brought one member we thought was out with sickness, brought him in a wheelchair. So it was one of those things. And honestly, we could have brought it up today because we had enough votes on the floor today. But our speaker is he's really a decent guy. You know, he's not trying to pull any fast ones. He wants to do it straight up, and that's what he wants to do. And I assume you want to ask me why I would vote to impeach Mayorkas.
Yes.
I guess was okay. I'll tell you why. Because I feel like he lied under oath. He took an oath. He swore in a committee that our borders were secure and that this craziness that's happening at 8 to 10 million people, depends on who you talk to, in the last 3 years have come over our border, and they've done little or nothing to fix it. And just by not telling the truth, I shouldn't call him a liar, but he is. It's really caused a huge, huge problem with morale with our Border Patrol agents. And I'm sure you've met them. They're probably a lot like those New York cops that you grew up around. Tough men and women, family people. They have a job to do. They take it very serious, and they don't feel like they're getting the backing from Washington.
I hear you. Two questions. Well, one, a comment, then a question. One, but you can't remove them. So isn't this a waste of time? The second one is, if you want to help those people, why don't you get into conference with the Senate and work on this bill that their union says would make the situation better instead of just playing politics for Trump?
But what was your first question? I was already answering your second question.
Mayorkas, you're not going to remove him. So why waste the time impeaching him? You know, it's like what you guys complained about with the Democrats. It
won't even be brought up in the Senate. But our base is demanding, and I think people are just so disgusted. They want to see some action. And I understand what you're saying. But the calls I get overwhelmingly are impeach that guy, impeach that guy. And I explained to him, I said, well, it won't go anywhere in the Senate. And he said, well, that's up to the Senate, but you're our guy. And so I plan to vote to continue to do that. And the next question was, what was the next question?
If you want to help the people on the border who are putting it all on the line for the rest of us, why don't you get into conference and work on this bill that Republicans in the Senate thought was adequate and that the people on the border say is improvement?
Well, as you know, it didn't pass today. And the reason it didn't, it was a behind closed door kind of deal. And I'll tell you who's to blame. Let's not blame the Democrats or the Republicans. Let's blame the uniparty, the big boys that really try to run the show, and our national chambers of commerce. Chris, I mean, I heard your daddy at the Democrat National Convention. It's the only time I ever listened to it talk about working men, you know, making union bricks, I believe. I can't remember the whole story, but it was something that's been talked about still. And it was something to set your mark on if you want to give a speech at a convention. But, you know, the truth is that if our large business, big business, whatever you want to call it, they don't have a party. If they want somebody working on their roof, that if it falls off, they don't have any liability. Because you know what those guys are going to do? They would be afraid to go to law enforcement. They'd be afraid to go to a lawyer because they'd have their butts back over the border without their families. And that's what it's all about. It's about cheap labor. That's all this thing is. These national chambers of commerce have done this every time we've had a meaningful bill that could do something about immigration. They've stuck their fat nose in the middle of it, and they're involved in this. They're not about this country. They're not about commerce. They're not about democracy. They're about big business making big money and the uniparty profits. And they don't see black, white, or brown. All they see is green when you close. First
of all, you should hold a hearing and bring the biggest employers in and start busting their behinds and demonizing them the way a lot of people demonize the people who are coming here desperate for a better life. And we know we need the workers. You know, I just had a buddy of mine in New Orleans say, look, he was in law enforcement. He says border security is broken and needs to be better, but half of us wouldn't have had our houses rebuilt here if we didn't have new labor coming in. So it's a complex issue, but the whole point of your job is to do something about it. Do you think there's any chance of a deal on the border before the election?
I don't think so. I don't think they want a deal, Chris. I think, again, this is the uniparty. I mean, I'm just being honest with you, brother. I don't think they really want a deal. They want to keep fighting. They want free labor. And I think the Democrats want it because they think they can use them at the polls in some shape, form, or fashion, possibly mail-in ballots is what I think. The big business boys, they need people to clean their motel rooms and build their houses.
Expose the guys. Expose the uniparty. Expose the people who are pushing not to have it, Tim. I mean, that's why I'm here, is to give you a platform to do it.
If I was in person with you, I'd pat you on the head and say, that's a very, very nice thought. But the reality is, who runs the committees? Both parties. It's the person that raises the most dadgum money.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But look, nothing changes if nothing changes. That's all I'm saying. But
that's why people,
I hear you. But
people like me and you, committee chairman, Chris.
But listen, you are an elected official, okay? I'm a guy with makeup on who talks on TV. You have power from a constituency, and I know it's important to you to use it. We can agree to disagree about the Mayorkas situation, but exposing these guys who are keeping progress back is everything, because nothing will change if nothing changes. It's one of those tautologies that we need to learn to live by. Congressman Tim Burchett, I got to jump, but you're always welcome here to make the case. Agree to disagree, but you're always welcome here.
Nah, we don't disagree, brother. I think we agree when it comes down to people. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for putting the truth out there, because my people really respect you.
All right.
Thank
God
you,
bless,
brother.
Congressman. To be continued.